Welcome everyone, Questini here with a discussion about the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves and what Creative Assembly can do with some of the things that they've designed for the Chaos Dwarves in terms of their campaign mechanics to improve other races in the game that desperately need it. Specifically for this video, I want to talk about the Empire and I want to talk about the Dwarves. I think Forge of the Chaos Dwarves is certainly the most ambitious DLC pack that Creative Assembly has ever released, and it is my genuine hope, though one shouldn't be foolish about this, but it is my genuine hope that this will set a new standard for DLC races and Lord packs going forward. I do certainly hope that when we get a new DLC for Warhammer 3, and we certainly will get a new DLC for Warhammer 3, likely Neferata and Nagash coming up soon enough. Just looking at the way they've done, what they've done with the Silver Pinnacle, I just look at the Silver Pinnacle in Darklands right now, and I think to myself, damn, that is a start position for a Legendary Lord if I've ever seen one. Against, like, the Silver Pinnacle against the Dripping Fangs. If that isn't the start position, I'll be very, very surprised. As for Nagash, that's a different discussion. I think they're certainly going to struggle to add Nagash in Realms of Chaos, but I kind of think that they should ignore Realms of Chaos going forward and actually have the narrative campaign in Immortal Empires, but we'll see what Creative Assembly decides to do with that. But I am fairly certain that the vast majority of the player base does not care about Realms of Chaos. If I were to do a poll right now, I'm sure like 80-90% of people would say that they don't care about Realms of Chaos. Maybe they'll dip their toes for some narrative aspects or to learn a race, but to actually play that as the main game mode, no. Immortal Empires is the main game mode. There's plenty of issues with Immortal Empires. Spaghetti Code doesn't even begin to describe the current situation of Immortal Empires. I wouldn't even want to be in the shoes of the person who has to open the Immortal Empire's code, because I think you would have to get a couple of shots of vodka before you do so, just so you don't completely lose your mind when you open it and you see the insanity of it. Like, I actually looked at how many audio files Warhammer 3 has. There's hundreds of thousands of individual audio files. That's how I did the AI voices, to be clear. I literally took the audio files for certain characters, specifically Alifa Nar and Karl Franz, put them in 11 labs, and that's how I got the 11 labs to replicate. It works to a certain degree, but it gave me an appreciation for how much work Creative Assembly has put in Warhammer 3. And I wonder if going forward, if they ever decide to make a mega project like this going forward for any other game, if they're gonna do it in a different way. Certainly a better way of organizing things than they have before, because right now it is a gigantic mess. Which makes me appreciate what they did to the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves all damn much more. Yes, it is a pricey DLC. Yes, it is nickel and diming. Yes, it is cashing out on the hype, but they did put in a genuine amount of effort. Even if they were just copying the economic aspects of a Total War Saga Troy, even just taking the economy system of a Total War Saga Troy and implementing it in Warhammer 3 is probably a lot more work than many people might realize. And then you get the wonderful design of the Darklands, and you get the situation with a race that is incredibly well designed. And I say that not because the Chaos Dwarves are incredibly powerful. They are, but they're not like, oh, I started a campaign, I've won the campaign. That's the case with the Warriors of Chaos, to an extent the Greenskins and some other races, but that's not the case with the Chaos Dwarves, because yes, you do have a lot of power, but you're also quite vulnerable. If you knock out a couple of crucial settlements that the Chaos Dwarves have in an empire, their entire economy comes crashing down. So you have to worry about an empire, your own empire, you have to worry about the state of the overall race because of the Tower of Tsar and the Confederation mechanic. So you're basically playing a Darklands campaign. You have to care about everything that's going on in the entirety of the Darklands, not just your own little corner of the campaign map. So I think what they've done is great. I know some people are disappointed at the lack of geographic variety for the Legendary Lords, but I do think that what they decided to do was the better decision, as opposed to just, I know, throwing Zaytan in the middle of the Empire as a final fuck you to Imperial players, because that's the last thing we would have needed. Creative Assembly, please don't add another Legendary Lord in the middle of the Empire. We have enough already between Festus, Strika, Vlad, and Kazrak to deal with if we're playing an Imperial campaign. It is quite rough already. If you throw another race and you don't completely redesign the Empire, it is going to be pretty crap. I mean, the Empire is already one of the worst races in the game. If they were to add another Legendary Lords of a new DLC race, that's just not gonna work very well. So I'm glad with the way they've decided to do it, and I do think there's certainly quite a lot of things they can take from this to improve other races. But I want to also be very realistic on this subject. Creative Assembly isn't going to do a race rework unless they're releasing a DLC pack. For the Empire, I'm not quite sure which Legendary Lord you could do a DLC for. Maybe Boris Todbringer, give him a campaign and use the Imperial system, the Conclave system for the Chaos Dwarves in that campaign. For the Dwarves, I know Joseph Bugman or someone else. There's plenty of characters to use for these races, by the way. But I do believe that there are certainly things they can take from the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves to add them to already existing races. And not just the Empire of the Dwarves, though. Those are the two races that desperately need major improvement in their campaigns. Dwarves, one of the things I think would fit very well for them, especially for Thorgrim Grudgebearer and for Grombrindal, would be some kind of expedition system that we saw in a Total War Saga Troy. I mean, if we're copying things from a Total War Saga Troy, which had some brilliant campaign ideas, let's go all the way. What I liked about Mythos in particular, as an idea, not necessarily the execution of it, but what I think was a great idea was the idea you're sending a military force, almost a full stack of troops, on an expedition in the world. And this force has a particular goal in sight. And I think this would make perfect sense for Thorgrim in particular, and to an extent for Grombrindal, even Thoric, where you send an expedition with a particular purpose. The purpose would depend on the campaign you're playing. Like if you're playing Thorgrim, what is Thorgrim's goal in the lore? Well, he's got two major goals. One, he wants to help his race to reestablish the realm. Two, he wants to stop the forces of chaos or the forces of disorder, so he's trying to help the forces of order. So maybe you could create an expedition where, hey, you build a full stack, and eventually at the conclusion of that expedition campaign, which is a narrative campaign, if we look at Mythos in a Total War Saga Troy, you get the final battle in, say, Caracate Peaks to help Belegar reclaim Caracate Peaks, and he would gain it on the campaign map as well. And if you've already confederated Belegar as Thorgrim or some other legendary lord, for instance, you would get it yourself, as opposed to just directly conquering it, right? It would be cool, it would be interesting, it would be very thematic for the dwarves, I feel. And Grombrindal, what is Grombrindal's role in the lore? Well, Grombrindal always shows up to help out the dwarves when they absolutely need it. He shows up in the most dire of situations. His campaign right now is fun if you want to smash some elves, absolutely, but it doesn't really fit with him in the lore. So that's just an idea, what I think Creative Assembly could do from Troy. From the Chaos Dwarves, what they could take is obviously the economy system, minus the laborers, of course. Maybe oath gold, maybe something else along those lines. Maybe attach grudges to the economy system, where you gain economic rewards, or your economy is based on the idea of fulfilling grudges. And those grudges shouldn't be dynamic in a sense. They shouldn't be about, oh yeah, some guy raided my territory, I get the grudge instantly. Though there should certainly be actions, like let's say an Imperial faction like Karl Franz or Gelt gets wiped out by another faction, maybe you get the grudge, or a Dwarven faction gets wiped out, like Vlad wipes out Zufbar in a lot of campaigns, maybe then you get the grudge, because you do care about the state of the Dwarven Empire and get campaign benefits for that, and maybe attach it to the economy system as well. Though Oath Gold could obviously fit the role of laborers in a different way. Like Oath Gold and dealing with grudges should be the core of the Dwarven economy, as well as materials and armaments, because the dwarves are a fairly industrial race in the lore, and we do not see that at all in the campaign. They just have a regular economy like the vast majority of other races. They don't feel special. They don't feel like the remnants of this great, mighty empire that spanned the world, that fought the most destructive war in the history of the world, minus the bullshit that was the end times, and that's, of course, the War of the Beard, or War of Vengeance against the High Elves. Like, you want to know what the most destructive war was in the lore of the entire Warhammer world? It's not anything to do with chaos. It's not the creation of the Vortex. The most destructive, brutal war was the War of the Beard. That's how powerful the dwarves were, and that's how powerful the High Elves were. And the High Elves can become that great. In fact, the High Elves right now, even though they're using the regular campaign systems, they kind of feel like this great ancient civilization that starts out weak because obviously they've had a lot of issues, but they can reach their former heights of glory. The dwarves don't feel like that. They feel pathetic, weak, and limited in their campaigns, and they don't feel like the dwarves should be in the lore considering their history. I know quite a bit about Warhammer lore. People try and argue that the dwarves are okay right now in the game based on, oh, they should be limited, they should be that. They should be at the start, but the goal of the campaign is recreating that glory, and not just because you're pushing yourself for a very punishing campaign with bad systems, bad casualty replenishment, horrible growth system, in order to recreate that. It should be more than that. It should be involved in that. Like, I wouldn't want the dwarves to have like a Dark Fortress system. I might have said that in the past, but I've come to the conclusion, no, giving them Dark Fortresses would be terrible, unless their main settlements were fairly formidable, but they couldn't win the campaign with just their main settlements. Like, Karazakarak should be an absolute nightmare for anyone to take, as should be the other main dwarf holds, like Barak Var, Zufbar, and all that. But the Dwarven campaign should depend on you going out in the world, expanding, building materials, getting materials, building up an economy, building relations with other factions. And that's not exactly how their campaigns are being played right now in Warhammer 3. And that's just the current reality of the system. So I think the material system, the armament system, would fit in very, very well with the dwarves, along with a redefined grudge system and a change to the entirety of the Oath Gold system and the grudge system. Like, the Oath Gold right now is just the cheese. You just go to the forge and you just build some really basic items, and then you combine those items, and then you sell them, recycle them, until you get an infinite amount of Oath Gold, and you get Armors of Destiny and powerful items on everyone. That isn't a great campaign system. Of course, there's always going to be people who are going to complain. It's like, oh, you're just whining, or you don't know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. It was kind of hilarious, where in my video on the dwarves, I got the comment, a fairly nasty comment, to be clear, from a guy who was like, what are you talking about? The dwarves are one of the most powerful races in the game. They get... Quarrelers are the best tier 1 range unit in the game. Just an idea. Quarrelers are a tier 2 unit. Just gonna point that out. Yes, you can get them pretty early, but that's like saying that Skaven Poison Wind Mortars are not the tier 5 unit because you can get them within the first 10 turns of any Skaven campaign because of their mechanics. They are a tier 5 unit, regardless of that situation. But yeah, it's nonsense. It's nonsense with respect to that. I do think the dwarves desperately need some improvements. They actually got nerfed pretty heavily in terms of their economy in Warhammer 3 when Warhammer 3 came out. Yeah, one of the worst races in the game actually got nerfed pretty heavily. Now, granted, Creative Assembly did nerf the economies of a lot of races, Dark Elves, High Elves, etc. But I think it really hurt the dwarves far more so than it hurt other races. I mean, when the greenskins have better economic output than you do as the dwarves throughout the entire campaign, not just because their base economic structures give them more gold, but because they earn so much by looting and pillaging settlements, that's not exactly a great situation. I think the greenskins are wonderful, and I certainly don't believe every race should be the same. That's always an accusation. People say, oh, you want every race to be the same. No, my favorite races are the High Elves, Dark Elves, now Chaos Dwarves, and Greenskins. Let me tell you something about the races I just listed. They're radically different in the way they play on their campaign map. So just because you want races to not have to deal with miserable growth, casualty replenishment, or crappy systems does not mean you want every race to be the same. My personal interest in a campaign is this campaign fun, enjoyable, engaging, and interesting from the very beginning? Is this campaign worth playing? Do you have a lot of potential in your campaign? You can do that. You do as the Greenskins, the High Elves, the Dark Elves. Yeah, the Dark Elves. A lot of people dislike the Dark Elves, but they're actually one of the better races in the game right now. In fact, I would certainly rate them as one of my favorite races, top 3 easily. Yeah, Warriors of Chaos are overpowered and broken as hell, but Warriors of Chaos are not a great design race at the moment, I have to say. I mean, it's powerful, but it's not fun. That's just where I stand on this particular subject. I would rather play an Elven campaign and a Chaos Dwarf campaign or a Greenskin campaign than I would play a Warriors of Chaos campaign. And I would certainly much rather play many other races, Tomb Kings, Bretonia, etc., than I would play a Dwarven campaign. I think the Dwarves just aren't in a great state right now. Because you can achieve a lot with them. I've done Dwarven campaigns on this channel. You can achieve a lot. You can win even pretty quickly, but it is an awful experience to engage in. But that's the Dwarves. They could really benefit from systems that would push them to care more about like their whole race, which that's what the legendary lords, that when you think of Grombrindal, Forgrim, even Ungrim, poor Ungrim, his Slayer benefit doesn't actually work at the moment still in the game. Poor Ungrim. Anyone who says the dwarves are fine, I was like, yeah, Slayers don't work. The Ungrim's Lord benefits just flat out doesn't work right now in the game. That's how bad they are at the moment. But yeah, they need some help. And those are just some ideas. I'm sure other people have other ideas like unit rosters or certain other mechanics like with Underway. But they do desperately need some updates. The Empire, especially Karl Franz and Balthazar Gelt, even Volkmar should be in this situation, not halfway around the world dealing with his own thing. No, an Imperial campaign should be about the Empire. I mean, the Hunts Marshal with his expedition, fair enough, but the whole thing that they did with Volkmar, I get it, people like it, there's a lot of power, but I do think that an Imperial campaign should be about the Empire, not about gallivanting around the world as a Crusader Knight, which is what Volkmar is doing right now. Don't get me wrong, there's benefits in that particular approach, so I don't have a high opinion of Volkmar's campaign. But here's the thing, Karl Franz's campaign and Gelt's campaign are kind of designed to care about the whole state of the Empire, except you don't, because half the Empire is going to burn to the ground regardless of what you do. Hochland, Ostermark are always going to be destroyed by various factions. Sturland, Averland, Midland are also at risk. Ostland gets wiped out by Kislev of all people, yeah. Castalten and Catherine really hate Ostland. So it's really not a great situation for an Imperial campaign. I mean, the only reason you give a single shit about the Imperial Empire as a whole is because if you don't, you suffer significant campaign downsides in growth control and income from old buildings. But even then, even with these benefits, you're suffering a lot just to not get a major downside. And I'm sorry, if a campaign is designed in such a way where you have to do something or else you're screwed because of faction-wide debuffs, that is not a great campaign. Besides, you don't even care about this meter or Imperial Authority or the Prestige system because you can cheese it. I'm not sure if it has been fixed. I didn't see it in the patch notes. But what you do if you're playing Karl Franz campaign, or more likely a Gelt campaign because he is better, is you declare war on Null and you suffer the initial hit of Imperial Authority, wipe out Null's army, and then you take over this particular settlement, this specific settlement, and then you sell it to Averheim again and again and again. You sell it to Averheim, then you get the event where you force Averheim to give it back, then you take it again, you get infinite amount of Imperial Authority, you get about 30, and you never have to care about this meter in your campaign. The rest of the Empire can burn, and you'll become far more powerful for it. And eventually take Null for yourself to be able to get artillery at tier 3, as opposed to tier 4. Plenty of people were ticked off when I didn't include the Empire in the top artillery races. Well, the reason they're not in the top artillery races is until they get to tier 4, they have absolutely crap artillery. Might as well be non-existent. Mortars are okay, but they also have a lot of downsides in their campaign. And you don't have artillery that's really effective in sieges, and even mortars on a field battle are pretty damn limited. Especially when we were thinking about mortars against warriors of chaos or vampires. Yeah, they're not going to do jack against those kind of races. I think if cannons were tier 3, that would be a very different discussion, but yeah, the Empire is in a rough state. What could the Empire take from the Chaos Dwarves specifically? Well, a system similar to what the Tower of Zar is, because what the Tower of Zar is for the Chaos Dwarves, it really pushes you towards cooperation and actually caring about the state of your race. You're not looking to screw over the other factions of your own race. Well, you screw over the minor faction of the Chaos Dwarves, but the legendary lords of the Chaos Dwarves, you want them to do well in their campaign, because if they do well, then you will be stronger for it. Your empire will be stronger. So if you're playing any Chaos Dwarf campaign, Zaytan, Astrogoth, Drazov, you actually do want to stick together. You want to cooperate, because you'll gain those seats, those conclave seats in the Tower of Zar. And those seats in the Tower of Zar, what they will do is they'll give you, once a whole district is unlocked, it will unlock further districts. And each district has a benefit each legendary lord gets. So there's a great deal of cooperation with that. I would not recommend the Chaos Dwarves as a co-op campaign, because ultimately the end goal is to confederate all the others. But it does create such a great feeling of cooperation and working together and caring about the whole race and the entire territory of that race, which is pretty much what Karl Franz's campaign should be about. Maybe different systems, but Karl Franz should care about the state of the whole empire. But right now, caring about the state of the whole empire is pretty miserable to deal with in a campaign, and you also don't have to care about the state of the entire empire. Whereas the Chaos Dwarves, yeah, if you're playing a Chaos Dwarf campaign, you can wipe out your rivals, but you're actually going to end up weaker for it. Yeah, shockingly, abusing other factions of your own race, screwing them over, is not the best decision for the Chaos Dwarves. In fact, it's the worst decision you can make. So I think like a district system, a tower system, a political system, like an Imperial Senate, I don't know if the Empire has that, I'm not sure. But I don't know, the Electoral College, really, we could have that with various seats, with various campaign benefits for all of them. Imagine if you had the seat system and you had all the electorate counts jockeying for power and influence with those seats, and you had to manipulate that, but you'd all gain benefits if a certain district was completed, and that would make the electorate counts, the smaller factions, actually worth a damn to keep alive on the campaign map, because it would help you unlock seats easier, and you would have a reason to confederate them outside of getting a pitiful amount of territory, because you would also gain the seats and the faction benefits that those seats would provide. So I think the Tower of Czar system was a great system. I think the way they designed the Chaos Dwarves was amazing in terms of cooperative racial gameplay that they introduced for the Chaos Dwarves. It's shocking that the Chaos Dwarves, of all the races in the game, especially as a disorder race, actually cares the most about cooperating with one another, keeping each other strong, stable, and healthy, where the Empire is just, like, Karl Franz is more of a Skaven legendary lord in the way you should play him right now in the best possible way than the actual Skaven are. Even the Skaven care about the state of their race. Like, if you're playing Snitch, you actually do want to eventually help out your fellow lords because you get benefits for doing so. I think that kind of cooperative gameplay would be very much needed for the Empire. Resources, armaments, I mean, we could talk about like how Nuln should be in the industrial heartland of the Empire and should produce a lot of materials and siege engines. Maybe some kind of economic system where, yeah, maybe you trade with Nuln, or you have certain missions that would give you rewards. I mean, we already have a system with Imperial supply systems that Marcus Wolfhard has, where you can get some really high tier units in your campaign pretty quickly. But I think that's what the Empire should be about. Cooperative, like caring about the state of the whole Empire and getting rewards for doing so. Because right now you're getting pretty much jack shit, except fealty and eventually transferring over into confederating them. And it's like confederating them, it's like, oh great, you took another province. You know what good races do? They take 10 provinces within the first 30 turns and have a dozen stacks running around. As the Empire, you're so limited and so screwed because you don't have the ability to do so. In fact, I would dare say, like, if this downside of crumbling imperial authority wasn't the case, I would say that, yeah, screw the Empire, just go in Bretonia and conquer Bretonia for your own sake. You'll benefit more than bothering with the Empire and the legendary lords that are here, and also not suffer the penalties of imperial authority. Hell, you might even do so, like build an army that's just constantly raiding Nuln for imperial authority and conquer Bretonia in the meantime. It really feels silly, just as silly as it is for Kislev's best campaign plan to actually conquer the Empire. No, I'm not joking. If you're playing a Kislev campaign as Catherine, Gastalton, or Borosursus, the best thing you do is you let some other poor schmuck deal with holding back the forces of chaos, while you're out there being the crusader for truth and justice and conquering the Empire for your own glory. Because Ostermark, like, yeah, Draca's crazy, but after that, yeah, you get the Ostermark, you get Sylvania, both northern and southern Sylvania, and then Talabecland, and maybe Midland as well. That's what you should do in a Kislev campaign. It just doesn't make sense. Many other things I said about, like, the Empire and Dwarves should also apply to Kislev, to be clear. That's the thing. And I don't think it is unreasonable for Creative Assembly to update these races. Yes, they'll only do so in the context of a paid DLC. We know those are coming. If there's a Lord Pack coming out, there should be a Lord Pack for the Empire, there should be a Lord Pack for the Dwarves, there should be a Lord Pack for Kislev, and I think there is going to be a Lord Pack for Kislev that's going to come out to focus on a certain other aspect of the race, not so much the Gospodar situation like Catherine is right now, or the Kislev campaigns are right now, but the other aspects of the race. And if that's the case, then yeah, Kislev should actually care about the state of Kislev and cooperation, and they shouldn't be picking a fight to the Empire. In fact, picking a fight to the Empire should be one of the worst decisions you should have at your disposal if you're playing a Kislev campaign. because the Empire should be your major allies that you depend on. Maybe having a system for Kislev where, hey, you know, you want to hold back the forces of Chaos at bay, and the better job you do at that, the Empire sends you more and more support. Like, yeah, some form of Imperial supply system, or some kind of supply system, like basically Marcus Wolfart's campaign systems implemented for Kislev. None of the things I mentioned over here are incredibly difficult, because Creative Assembly has done versions of these everything that I've talked about so far in this video. They've done it either in Warhammer games directly, or in other Total War games. And we've seen that they can take systems from other Total War games and implement them in Warhammer 3. That's what they did with the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves. Well, that's all I had to say. Costin signing out. I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of very negative comments. But I do have one thing to mention about that. It is never a wrong perspective to say that things could be better for a race. Even if you disagree with the sentiment that the race is bad, and I think the Empire and Dwarves are certainly two of the worst races, and Kislev is not that great either, I think it is always a foolish notion to take the perspective that things can't be better or much better. We see that things can indeed be improved. There's always a mentality that I've disliked, especially back in the day when we were talking about Rome 2. There was always people that had the perspective, oh, things can't be radically improved. Like, there were people who argued we couldn't have radically improved performance in Total War games back then because it would be too hard. Well, Creative Assembly did it. They vastly improved the performance of the game. Oh, we can't have flying units and magical units. Remember, back in the day, before Warhammer 1 came out, there were plenty of people who did not expect magic or flying units and monstrous units in a Warhammer game, who were arguing that they would just be on the same level as some shitty mod, though granted the Warhammer mods for Medieval 2 are not shitty at all, but you get the idea. They would be on a mod level. I'm sorry, I expect more from a AAA developer than what a mod can do. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of wonderful mods out there. I've played a lot of Third Age Total War for Medieval 2, but the main games, a multi-billion-dollar company should do a much better job than a mod. I also get the feeling that with certain things like the Empire or the Dwarves, Creative Assembly knows there's plenty of mods for the Empire that vastly improved their situation, and maybe they're just not caring about it because they know, well, a mod fixes it. But I don't think you should depend on mods to fix your own game. I think the game should be improved on. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.